of the number one problems a household has with their money life is not keeping track of, where the money comes from and where it goes. There's an old poem by Robert Frost. It's one of the few poems I've ever committed to memory, and it's called The Hardship of Accounting. And Frost says, "Never ask of money spent where the spender thinks it went. Nobody was ever meant to remember or invent what they did with every cent." That's pretty good, because in some respects, we can't keep track of every penny. But it is important to keep an idea of what are we earning and where is it going. And without that, a clear picture of that, we're really not going to reach our financial objectives. And I like to speak of objectives as opposed to goals because I'm a pretty lousy goal setter. But I have in my own mind objectives that I want to accomplish. And I think most of us, if we sat down and thought about it, we would come up with some objectives. A lot of people don't like the word budget, frankly. It's kind of a detestable word. It sounds like a negative thing. I have to budget my money. And since we live in such a consumer-oriented culture, maybe we could just reframe that by calling it a spending plan, because in fact, that's what it is. A budget helps you decide how you're going to spend your money. And it's important to understand how much money is coming in and where it's going. I've said that several times, but a lot of people don't think about it. They think in terms of their net pay. But I want to start working with people with their gross pay, because one of the most important expenses that they have are their taxes, the taxes that come out of their paycheck. Because those taxes actually are under their control. How much can be withheld is really up to the individual. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But we spend money all the time. So what we have to do is kind of keep track of how we're spending it. 3 simple rules. And those rules are this. First of all, spend less than you earn. I know that's not the American way, but it really is important to learn to spend less money than you earn. The second rule is to save now and buy later. This flips on the head the thing you see a lot in advertising, that's buy now and pay later. But that's really a dangerous thing to practice. So second rule is save now and buy later. And the third rule is know, as in understand, K-N-O-W, no debt. Understand debt. There are different types of debt. Some debt is a debt toward an asset, and other debts are just liabilities, things that kind of pile up. Now listen, one of the reasons you want to get a hold of your money life is this. Without that confidence of where your money's coming from and where it's going, there's a lot of anxiety. People who work with couples that are struggling in their marriage discover that the number one reason for marital problems is money and the issues around money, that and communication. And frequently, we don't communicate about money. And we're going to do a lot of communicating about money over the length of this course. So the 3 simple rules, again, are spend less than you earn, save now and buy later, and no debt. Here's the important thing to remember about your spending plan. You got to keep a spending plan allows you to keep track of the cash flow, because cash flows through your life. Sometimes it flows more readily than at other times. And one of the things of cash flow that we have to watch is the amount of money that we just spend on a day-to-day basis. We often have money in our wallets, and sometimes that burns a hole in the wallet for some people. They feel like they have to spend it. So that's one place where we can just begin to pull back a little bit and just, hey, how am I spending my money? And it's important to kind of keep track of that. A great way to do that is through receipts. Hang on to receipts, and at the end of the day, you might want to add those receipts to a list, kind of like, what have I spent today? There's a lot of financial software programs out there, Quicken being probably the most popular, but there are more than Quicken, and some are web-based, and they're secure. And it's important to kind of keep track of where your money goes. But the number one problem is debt on that. A lot of people acquire debt, consumer debt. You can get a credit card at the drop of a hat practically. You might even be receiving credit card offers in the mail. They might even be sending you pre-approved credit cards. And the temptation behind that is we think, well, we could afford an easy, low monthly payment, and we want to, buy the things that we feel we need to have. But that gets us into a problem of accumulating a lot of debt. And our consumer debt really shouldn't be a large part of our budget. It's very important for us to understand where our money's coming from and then where it's going. So we want to write down, how much are we paying in taxes every paycheck? It's important to keep track of how much you're spending at the grocery store. What are you spending on your transportation, your monthly bills? All those need to be put together in a list so you know what they are. Now, the reason you do this is that it makes often a complex and abstract fear a more concrete and manageable event. A lot of people have anxiety and fear surrounding their finances. And that's because they really don't understand how much they're making and how much they're spending. And when we can make a concrete thing, I know how much I'm making or how much we are making as a couple, and these are our fixed costs, and then you kind of know what your financial picture looks like. I think that's the most important reason to creating this budget or spending plan, as I prefer to call it, is it makes a complex and abstract issue very concrete and very manageable.